Alright, Instagram followers, this video is for you. So earlier today I posted a poll on my Instagram story asking you all what video I should be posting next. Should I do a rear lift on my truck, or should I do this little DIY LED project I've been teasing on Instagram for a little bit here? And by an astounding 60% to 40%, you all voted for the LED project. So here is the LED project. So what we have here is 3 super bright LED bolt lights. So I picked these up from superbrightleds.com. They're roughly $3 to $4 per light bulb, or per bulb, I guess. And these are red LEDs. These are, in fact, the same LEDs that are up in my Evil Manufacturing third brake light. Now, why did I pick up these 3 lights, and why are we looking at the rear of the truck? Well, what I'm going to be doing is installing those guys just above the license plate on my truck to kind of mimic the TRX look and the 2500 or 3500 look. So if you ever looked at the back of a heavy duty truck or the new TRXs, you notice that they have 3 LEDs in the back here. I always thought that look was kind of cool, and I wanted to mimic it. And after I did the Evil Manufacturing light, I was like, hey, you know, I could grab those lights and then I could do the same thing down here. Now, I've seen some installations where people go out and buy that prefab LED bar in here. There's not much clearance in here with that wire that goes from the tailgate into the wire harness underneath the truck. So I figured with these LED bolt lights, these are probably a much easier way to do that. So essentially what we're going to do today is mount 3 LEDs. So one's going to be directly in the center here, one's going to be off to the side, and then the other one's going to be off to this side, and they're going to be equidistant from that center one. I don't know the distance yet, but I will say what's going to dictate the distance is this bracket right here. So my tailgate has an electric lock and a camera, which means I have a wire harness that drops down right here, and inside here there's this clip, and it's basically a little panel. So I don't want to mount that LED bolt light to the panel. What I'm going to do is go immediately to the left of it, and that's going to dictate where I mount the left light. And then what I'll do is I'll mount the center one. I'll measure this distance, and that's the distance to the right light. So let's take a look at those LED lights. Now, I've used these used LED bolt lights in the past. So if you go back to an old video with my GMC Sierra, I installed a set of these guys. I actually picked them up from a company called Oznium, and they work much the same, but these ones are from Super Bright LEDs, and they're much cheaper. And the color of these guys is going to match the color of the red lights in my Evil Manufacturing light perfectly. So everything is going to match nicely. So essentially what this is an LED bolt. So it's a bolt with an LED bulb on the end of it, and I got 3 of them. They have a lens, and they're somewhat directional. You want to make sure that that LED is oriented horizontal once it's installed, but it's a threaded body, and then there's a nut on here, and that nut is removed when you install it. You're going to drill a 10mm hole, pop this guy in there, and then on the other side you're just going to tighten this nut up. So just for the sake of keeping everything tight, I had a couple washers laying around that will fit the body of these guys. So essentially what I'm going to do is drill a hole through the plastic underneath the truck there, drop my bolt light in there, thread a washer on the back end of it, and then thread the nut on the back of that, and then everything will be good to go. And then as far as the wiring, it's as simple as tying all the reds together, tying all the blacks together. The blacks are being ground to the frame, so we'll find a pretty easy ground underneath there. And then as far as the power, we want these lights to come on with the running lights. So on our 7-pin harness, we want to tap into the terminal in the top left, and I believe it's a brown wire on the back end of this harness. We're going to verify that by pulling everything off, but ultimately when this circuit gets power when the truck is on, we want to make sure that our lights are going to power on too. So to make things easier on myself, I went ahead and removed the spare tire. So that's sitting over there. That way I got a ton of room underneath, and I got a light up underneath. So let's hop up underneath the truck, and I'll show you once we drill those holes here where they're going to end up. All right, so we are underneath the truck, and that harness I was telling you about that goes into the actual tailgate itself, this is that harness. This will move out of the way. It unclips. And then those LED bolt lights that we're going to install are actually going to thread right through this piece of plastic here. So like I said, plastic. So you don't got to worry about metal. You don't got to worry about any rust. But this is ultimately what you're going to be threading those guys through. So you don't need that long of a wire. So what I'm going to do is drill the holes in here. Make sure we get them centered on the piece of plastic, and I'll make sure they're centered underneath the tailgate. Then the bolts will drop through. We'll have our wires come off here. I'll tie all the reds together. And then just like I did with my truck bed lights, I already removed a bunch of the electrical tape so I can get access here. I'm going to use a posi tap to tie into this brown wire right here. That'll give me my power for those 3 LEDs. And then the ground, I'll just run a ground right up to that guy probably, and that should be it for the project. Then I'll just tie everything up, put everything in wire loom, and call it a night. Each one of these LED bolt lights pulls less than an amp, so it's 0.05 amps per light. So as far as using the power from this little harness here, I don't think I'm gonna have any issues. I'm gonna run a fuse on there just like I did here, so I don't have any issues. It's going to tie into all the powers on each of the light, and then we're going to take all the grounds and then tie them right into there. Super simple. So let's take a look at the materials that you need to get. Okay, obviously the first thing you need to get is your LED bolt lights, and I'll leave a couple links to a few of these down in the description below, but I found some on Amazon as well. Next thing you're going to need is a fuse. Now you can get a micro fuse, you can get a regular fuse, but ultimately you want a weatherproof sealed fuse holder. That way you could take the power off of that circuit and then feed the power through this fuse into your lights. I grabbed some washers just to make installation a little bit cleaner on the back end of everything. I'm going to use 16 gauge wire. This is a bit overkill. You can get away with 18 gauge if you want. Again, super low amperage, but since this is such a thick wire, I wanted to make sure that the connection was sound. Again, I'm no electrical genius, so I got my butt connectors in case I need them. I'm going to use this tape. That's going to help me mark where I need to drill the holes underneath there. Since it's black, it's really hard to see with black marker, but if I put a piece of blue tape there, I'll be able to cleanly see it and guide my drill into it. Electric tape, heat shrink. Obviously, anytime you're doing electrical underneath the truck, have heat shrink available because you're going to want to make sure all the fittings are weatherproof. And then obviously you want your wire strippers and crimpers. You'll need this in case you want to verify the wire, but in my application, I'm almost certain that it's the brown wire underneath there. I'll verify that in a second here, but again, I was pulling voltage off there earlier. All right, before we get back into the install, we're going to take a little sidebar here. If you are ever in Illinois and have a chance to drink some Hot Butcher beer, I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. This is some of the best beer out there. If you're into craft beer, and if you're into some of the best hazies in Illinois, that's what Hot Butcher is. So, Hot Butcher Brewery. Anyways, let's get back to the install. So what I am going to do here is I'm only going to focus on this side one. And the reason I'm doing that is because this side one will dictate how far to the left or how far to the outside of the vehicle that my light will mount, because I want to avoid that bracket. So what I did there is I put a piece of blue tape and I took my son's ruler here that's flexible because it's not exactly easy to get a tape measure in there. And I popped this guy up in there and I measured a couple spots. And I think I'm going to be pretty happy with that lower portion or that lower dot on the blue tape. And now what I'm going to do is use a small little drill bit and drill right on that lower dot. And what that's going to do is it's going to pop a hole through that plastic panel, and then we'll go up underneath and I'll show you what that's going to do. So I'm going to drill through here real quick. That's going to let me know where that hole is going to be and how low from this, because there's like a hard edge behind here. It'll let me know how far from that hard edge I need to measure it. Then I could go over to this side, do the exact same, and then go in the center and do the same. And I could drill all of these holes and make this one wider from the back or from underneath the vehicle instead of having to do it through here. So then I could use a step bit and slowly open it up until this fits. All right, so we are underneath the truck. So this is that harness that we were trying to avoid. This is the driver's side of the vehicle. That's the passenger side. So here is that hole we drilled, if you can see it. It is roughly 3/4 of an inch from this hard ledge. And like I said, the reason why I wanted to drill a small hole is because I wanted to use that to give me my measurement from the top of this ledge down. That way I can repeat it in the center and on the driver's side. So now that I have this hole drilled, what I'm going to do is measure that. And then I will mark a dot here in the center line of that plastic panel, and then I will measure from this little tab to here. That'll give me my measurement here, and I'll repeat that from there. So then I'll just measure from here to here, and then I'll draw a line, and that'll be my passenger side mark for my passenger side light. My center line basically lines up with these two tabs here. I put a mark there. It's basically 15.5 inches. I believe this top panel is 31 inches all the way across. So you just find the center line, drop it down, and then I'll just drop the height measurement based on what we measure here, and then we'll go from that. All right, so our holes are drilled. So let's talk through some measurements. First measurement I'll give you is from the top of this ledge to where the lights are going to pop through. So basically from this little edge down the back wall and then to the center dot of the holes is 3/4 of an inch. So I come I come 3/4 of an inch down, and then obviously the middle one is smack dab in the middle, so that's 15.5 inches from this little ledge right here. And then this guy is about, he is 4 3/4 from this little rib. So you can measure from that rib to the inside, 4 3/4, come down 3/4 of an inch, draw your circle or draw your dot, and that's where you're going to drill that guy. And obviously this one's the same thing. So 4 3/4 from this outside rib, 3/4 of an inch down from the top ledge, and that'll give you your hole. You can see it fits the super bright LEDs perfectly. I ended up drilling a 7/16 hole. That gave me plenty of room to get these guys slid in there. They fit perfect. I'm going to go ahead and slide the washer on the back of it and then the nut on the back of that. Then as far as mounting these guys, they are done, and then it's all down to wiring. So once I get all of these LEDs back in there, then I could start working on the wiring. And ultimately what we're going to do is the positive and negative are basically going to chase my bed light wire all the way down here. The negative is going to keep going, and we're going to tie the negative into this little ground right here. And then the positive is going to grab that brown wire in there. And then that will power all 3 of our LEDs. So next, all right, now that we got our LEDs situated, everything's fully mounted. I clear the wiring harness nicely. They're up there. We got our pigtails hanging out, ready to go. We're going to turn our attention to the trailer harness because this is where we're going to grab that power from. So I went ahead and I did confirm that this brown wire in here is your running lights. So what we're going to do is use a smaller posi tap, and that will straddle the wire here, similar to how the blue posi tap's doing that for the constant power. We're going to grab the marker lights here, and then we're going to run that right into our fuse just like we do with our truck bed lights. And then I'm going to zip tie the 2 fuses together, and then from there that's going to run up to all the positives. So like I said, posi tap, that's going to run into my fuse, and then I'll just work backwards from there. The fuse will dictate how long these positive wire runs will go, and I might tuck these things up out of the way just to figure out, you know, what wire length I need to run. So this is going to take a little bit because a little bit of wiring. So I got to make 2, 4, 6 connections plus a ground over there. All right, everything is wired up. So it doesn't look pretty right now because nothing's wire loom, but I wanted to leave everything exposed so I could walk you through my wiring path. So ultimately, all of your power is getting pulled from this guy. So your fuse connects to the brown wire inside here. So our fuse comes out here, and then it tees off. So it grabs our passenger side light this way, grabs our middle light, and then it grabs our far light. Now again, I know a lot of people give me crap for using butt connectors. I suck at soldering, so these things work perfectly fine. I've never had an issue. As long as you use the appropriate size ones and you use shrink wrap, everything holds up really well. And then you just loom it just for extra protection to tuck everything up, then you're good to go. So power comes over, ties in all the lights together, and then they tie into the fuse. Fuse ties into the brown wire on the trailer harness. Then the black wire is your ground, so tees in here, tees into that guy, and then I just went ahead and repurposed my ground for my bed lights. But ultimately, if you were running these and didn't have the bed light, you'd connect all your third brake light, or I guess marker lights or TRX lights, whatever you want to call them, together, and then you'd run a wire basically right up to there. But this is my bed light ground, so I just figured let's go ahead and reuse it. These things don't pull any amperage, so we're good to go. Okay, so remember we have the lights on the marker light. So if I put the light dial on just the marker light, so it's going to turn on the amber lights on the side of your headlight. So this is our marker light, and I have a relay up here that turns on my Raptor style grill lights. So let's go take a look at the rear of the truck and see what happens with our lights. So in the rear of the truck, boom, there's our lights, and they are bright. Holy cow, they look awesome. Super pumped, stoked about that. They turned out really well. Again, they're on the marker circuit, so when the marker lights turn on, the 3 lights in the rear will turn on. There's my evil light. So let's go ahead and get everything loomed up underneath the truck, get that spare tire back in there, and then take it outside and see what this guy looks like in the dark. But man, those are bright. They look awesome. All right, so that is how you install TRX or heavy duty or clearance style lights on your Ram 1500 truck. Now this will work on 2019 or newer trucks. Fairly certain this will work on the Classics as well, but you'll have to double check that wire down in the trailer harness, make sure that that's the brown wire is your power for the marker lights. Also, as far as measurements and everything, these measurements will apply to the 2019 or newer Rams, 2018 and older, or the 2019 newer Classics. You're gonna have to double check measurements as well, but I'll leave the link to all of the parts down below. But as far as costs and everything, so $9 for the lights themselves, a couple bucks for the fuse, so $5, let's say. Some wiring, some wire taps and everything, wire connectors. All in all, I'm probably less than $25 into this TRX mod, and it looks freaking awesome. I am pretty happy with how it turned out. It matches the lights very well. Just fits the bill on the truck. Again, why did I do this? There is no other reason other than the fact that I just like the way these lights look. Anyway, that's how you install the TRX lights on the 2019 and newer Ram Rebel, or Ram trucks in general. Hope you guys like the install. Hope you learned something. Hope this helps you with your project. With that said, thank you very much for watching. Appreciate it. Bye.